guys, and welcome back to the Library of Alexandria. Today, guys, today I am going to be talking about the top 15 series that I am looking forward to starting in 2021. I will probably not finish all or even most of these, but I am really hoping to at least begin these series next year. And so I had a rough time narrowing it down to freaking 15. Like I really just want to do a top 10, and then I'm like, nah, there's too many that I want to start. So I spread it up to 15, but I did have to make some cuts. The criteria is that I have not already begun these series. There are plenty that I want to finish or keep reading. These are ones that I have not yet made a plan to read with anybody or have not yet started on my own in my own TBRs. So these will be a brand new series that I am looking forward to starting, with the exception of one that is a series reread. Now, if you have not noticed, I need to show you this t-shirt right here. This shirt I am wearing, I gotta sit up, whoop. It says, it's the Leaning Tower of Cheesa.
Max, look. It's the Leaning Tower of Cheesa.
This is from a Goofy movie, which is an underpraised masterpiece.
If we listen to each other,
I don't care who you are, I will fight you. A Goofy movie is underrated.
after today she'll be mine.
It is a gem.
You gotta believe that I gotta win.
And it is amazing. Amazing. Definitely one of my top Disney movies. A Goofy movie is so good. Guys, it's so good. Now, this dude right here is played by the inimitable Pauly Shore, who I don't really like. In fact, I hate every Pauly Shore movie I've ever seen, except for Goofy movie, where he plays the tech guy with the Leaning Tower of Cheesa. So anyway, this was sent to me by someone. It has to be someone from my Discord, because we were talking about Goofy movie and how amazing Goofy movie was and the Leaning Tower of Cheesa. So whoever you are who sent me this, you did not leave a note, but thank you. Awesome. Goofy movie's incredible, and please let me know in the comments when you watch this that it was you, because I don't know who it was. All right, without wasting any more time before we begin this thing, let's start. These are in no particular order. I didn't number them 15 to, ooh, I'm most excited about this. I'm just going to start with whichever one is on top, because I stacked them, and we'll go from there. So, number 15 is actually the series that I am looking forward to rereading. I'm looking forward to reading this series because I want to reread it, and that is The Deathgate Cycle by Margaret Wise and Tracy Hickman of really Dragonlance fame. The first book is called Deathwing. This is a 7-book series about a world that was sundered. There were these two races, and the more powerful godlike ones sundered the world into an earth, air, wind, water planets, and one race was shoved inside a labyrinth where they died and they had to learn how to survive, and one guy made it out, and now he's like the king of that race, and he takes one guy like under his wing as his son and sends that guy to try to like discover the plans of the vanished Sartan, which are the god race, and he tries to meddle in things so that, you know, the patrons, the race he is, can kind of take over the world, if you want. And as he starts to see that, starts to see things. Maybe he is the victim of a little bit of propaganda, and the series is so good. I remember it really vividly, but I don't know if it's going to hold up, 20 years later, but I really am excited to restart this series. No one talks about this on BookTube because it's ancient. It's an ancient series from the freaking 90s, but I'm going to reread it. I'm hoping I'll love it just as much as I did before. If I recall, I really, really enjoyed the first 4, which deal with the elemental worlds, and I've read each of those multiple times, but I think I've only read the concluding 3 books, which is after he visits all 4 of the worlds. I think I've only read those final 3 books like once, so I actually don't remember what happens at the conclusion of this series as much as I do the stuff leading up to it. So, Deathgate Cycle, I'm excited. Number 14 is going to be the Farseer Trilogy by Robin Hobb. So I have heard so many good things about Robin Hobb. My buddy Andy at Andy Smith loves Robin Hobb, speaks so highly of her. Chris over at Chris's Bookish Cauldron speaks so highly of her. I know Philip Chase also really likes Robin Hobb. There are so many people talking about how incredible Robin Hobb is in my circle, and I really want to read the live ship Traitors series because Andy has just been talking them up, and it sounds right in my wheelhouse. It sounds amazing. However, I don't read things out of order. Yes, I know that theoretically you can start with those, but I've also read that the live ship Traitor series spoils the ending of the Farseer Trilogy, and I don't want that to happen. Many of you are like this too. Like, yes, you can, but am I going to? No. So, I want to read the Farseer Trilogy so I can get to the live ship Traitor series. So, this one is about a guy named... The character's name is Fitz, which already is a thumbs down against this book because I hate... You guys know, if you watch my channel, I really don't like these little short named... I don't know why these names that are short always have to be terrible, like Pug. Or Kip.
Napoleon, don't be jealous that I've been chatting online with babes all day.
Oh, hey, Napoleon. Or Fitz. Like, who wants to read 3 or more books about a guy named Fitz? What a terrible name. But I do hear it's filled with political intrigue. I hear that Robin Hobb is not afraid to put her characters through the ringer. And so I am excited about that, despite the fact that I know that her prose is, dense, if you will. And she used the word knuckly, which I don't like the word knuckly. And I know that because Chris in Andy's Trivia Night made that the first word of something. Anyway, knuckly, that's weird. But I'm super excited to start Robin Hobb. I've never read anything by Robin Hobb, but I've been seeing this series, since I was in middle school, browsing the B. Dalton fantasy section in my local bookstore. So I'm excited to give her a try. So number 13 is another series I haven't heard too much about on BookTube, and that is the Demon Cycle series by Peter V. Brett. The first book is The Warded Man. And so what I have heard about this is I've heard that the first book is really, really good, and then the next books aren't. That is what I have heard about this series. I have heard that the first one is good, and the rest of them, I don't think I know anybody who's read, maybe Kevin the Undying, but other than Kevin, I don't know anybody who's read all of them. I think some people, like most people, get to the second one and are like, yeah, pass, I'm done. From what I understand, the Demon Cycle is about the towns live in kind of these bubbles, because outside these bubbles, outside these protective fields, the demons are, and there's some kids who end up leaving the protection of the barriers and going out and braving the demon stuff. I don't know what else the series is about, but that premise alone is super interesting. And like I said, I've heard good things about this first book. Now, this doesn't sound fun at all. Nothing about this book sounds fun. And just like nothing sounds fun about Farseer. Dragon's Gate was fun, Deathgate was fun in little places, so it's not super fun, but it's a little fun. This doesn't sound fun at all. It sounds like a big drag, super hyper serious, and you can only take so much of that, so you gotta kind of space it out with other things. But the premise is interesting enough. I want to start it, and maybe I can, if it's really good, I can get some other people to read it as well, and we can all talk about it, and it can have a renaissance. Number 12 is a series I have never ever heard anybody say anything about, and that is the Engineer Trilogy by K.J. Parker. The first book here is Devices and Desires. So, K.J. Parker, the thing I've heard people talk about most that he's written is the 16 Ways to Defend a Walled City, which is about this kind of incompetent engineer who pretends to be competent when a siege comes to his city. And that seems to be a lot of the stuff that he writes about. His settings, from what I understand, are really kind of this Renaissance Italy kind of setting with like merchant princes. And so there's technology, but it's much more, Victorian steampunky technology than it is, modern technology. And so this series is hard to describe, and it's also hard to, you can cull a lot of what you hear people talking about. Here, not having anybody heard about, I kind of just have to go off what the first book is about, and I'll just read this one to you. It's pretty short. When an engineer is sentenced to death for a petty transgression of guild law, he flees the city, leaving behind his wife and daughter. Forced into exile, he seeks a terrible vengeance, one that will leave a trail of death and destruction in its wake. But he will not be able to achieve this by himself. He must draw up his plans using the blood of others. This is the extraordinary tale of a man who engineers a war to be reunited with his family. And that sounds freaking cool. It's a guy, who's a member of a guild, and he's sentenced to death, he runs away, and then starts a war so that he can get back. That just sounds cool. It sounds like there's a lot of political maneuvering. It sounds like there might be some mercantilism and economic, intrigue in there as well, which stuff is right up my alley. And plus, I'll get to read some KJ Parker, which I have not read, though The Folding Knife is probably one of the highest on my list of standalones to start next year. Next on the list, we have the Winnowing Flame Trilogy by Jen Williams. The first book here is The Ninth Reign. Now, I had never heard of this either. This came to my attention because of Elle over Elliot Brooks. I saw her review of it, and I've talked to her about it, and she really likes this first book. And it just sounds really, really freaking cool. I wish that I could kind of synopsize what she said the first book is about. Instead, here's an excerpt from what someone says the series is about. Jen Williams has crafted a stunning post-apocalyptic world, noble estates, nomadic plainsfolk, and deserted ruins with the grandeur of Osgiliath may sound familiar, but wait until you enter the wild. It's literally a jungle out there with monstrous plants and mutant animals dying to sink their teeth into you, and parasite spirits who can turn you inside out. That's not a metaphor, in case you were wondering. What? So apparently there are these rains that cause things. I don't know. There's winnowing rains that cause winnowing, and really, my favorite types of both rains and flames are the winnowing variety. So it just sounds really cool. It sounds very different than what I've generally. It sounds different than what I've generally read. I hear there's a lot of female POVs in there, which is awesome. Elle said there's like a character that's like an old grouchy female version of Geralt. I don't know if that's true. Maybe I'm misremembering. There's something related to Geralt in there. Anyway, it sounds really cool. I'm gonna start it next year. See if I like it as well. Next on this list is going to be, boom, Spellslinger by Sebastian de Castell. So if you've watched any of my videos, you know that I love The Greatcoats by Sebastian de Castell. In fact, it's one of my top favorite series. It's certainly of the year, but probably of all time. I love The Greatcoats, and I love the way de Castell writes. They are very, very fun, and they are very swashbuckling and adventure-y, and just, there's a lot of Here Comes the Cavalry, which I really like, but there's so much action and humor, and I really, really enjoyed Greatcoats. Now, Spellslinger is his YA series. It is 6 books long, and from what I understand, it's about a kid named Kellen who is going to be exiled if he doesn't win his mage duel, but his magic is fading, and so he doesn't really know what to do, and then this mysterious female mage kind of pops into town, and who knows where it goes from there. From what I have heard people say, that it's very similar in feel to The Greatcoats, but for kind of a younger audience, so maybe there's all the like super adult stuff from Greatcoats doesn't appear here, which is fine. Like, I wouldn't miss that really at all. I just love Sebastian de Castell, so I'm definitely looking forward to starting this one. I know that he is about to release the first in a new series in the Spellslinger world next year as well. So if I can finish these 6 books, I can go ahead and start that, which would be awesome. Next up, we've got The Traitor Sun Cycle by Miles Cameron. First book is Red Knight, and this is a 5-book series about a group of mercenaries, kind of a band of I guess knights or sellswords that are hired to protect an abbey and end up having to fight a bunch of monsters. Things that I have heard is that there is a lot of battle. This is kind of a medieval setting. So knights and stuff, it's much more, yes, there are magical creatures, but I think this is much more centered on kind of military action, on combat, and that the combat is really well written, that there's a lot of it. I've also heard there's a bunch of POV chapters. I know Petrik speaks really highly of this series, and he may be the only one, besides of Kevin, of course, who I know that's actually read this series. I have had this book and wanted to read this book really since I started BookTube, and I just haven't gotten around to it. So I need to make time to kind of prioritize Red Knight here and see if it lives up to the hype, because military fantasy, this kind of band of mercenaries, band of hirelings, and really good combat, it's just right up my alley. It's my jam. So gonna start that soon. Next, we have a series that was on my TBR at one point this last year because the D&D Minis chose it, and I just never got to it. And so I'm definitely gonna start it next year, and that's the First Law Trilogy by Joe Abercrombie, starting with The Blade itself. I've heard so much about Joe Abercrombie, so much to the point where Joe Abercrombie has now been hyped to the level of, can it possibly live up to expectation. Now, I know my friend Leanna over at Leanna's Library, or it should be Leanna's Apothecary, she loves Joe Abercrombie and First Law. But my buddy Andy thinks it's overrated, because of course he does. So, who do you trust? I know many, many people who like First Law. I've actually heard fewer people who don't like it than do like it. I know Philip Chase really likes Abercrombie. I have heard so much about these characters, that Joe Abercrombie, he just writes amazing battle scene, and his prose is amazing, and his characters are so morally gray. I wish people would stop talking about Glotka, who I'm assuming is a torturer, right? He's a torturer, and everyone loves Glotka, right? It should be a new sitcom on TBS. Everybody loves Glotka, and it should have its own laugh track. Every time he's like, I'm gonna rip your finger off. I don't know how he talks. I don't know anything about it, but then people go, ah, because torture, right? So I don't know. I hope that it has not been overhyped. I hope that I can, at the very least, I can at least join the conversation. And worst case scenario, I can just bother Leanna by telling her that I hate it, because she hates everything that I love. Next on the list, we have The Alchemy Wars by Ian Tregillis. First book is The Mechanical. Why is not, I've never heard anybody talk about this series. Is it even fantasy or sci-fi? I think it's maybe historical fantasy. I don't know. It is set in an imperialist world where the Dutch have won. The Dutch Protestants are superpowers because they have freaking robots. They have androids that fight on their side. They have this robotic technology. And so the Dutch are superpowers. What? And the Pope is super mad, and the French can't do jack because, the Protestants are kicking the crap out of him. The Pope is shaking his fist, and he's in the Vatican being like, you need to stop, and all that stuff. And this sounds so cool. It just sounds so cool. And I think it's about one of those mechanicals, one of those steampunky robot drones named Jax, who develops autonomy and I guess turns on his Dutch masters. And it's oh my gosh, it sounds so, how have I not read it yet? Stupid TBR, stupid buddy reads. Anyway, I want to read this so bad. I'm gonna read it this year. It sounds so cool, and then if it's as good as I think it is, this book's gonna be on my 5-star prediction list, which is gonna come soon. I gotta remember that I want to put this one there. I'm pretty sure this one's gonna be awesome. Next, another book that I should have gotten to this year, and I didn't. This series is definitely gonna be started and not finished because it is 9 bleeding books, and that is The Expanse by James S.A. Corey, which is, I think, Ty Frank and Daniel Abraham. Now, I love Daniel Abraham's Long Price Quartet. I'm definitely going to be finishing that the beginning of next year. This is a space opera. It's mystery in space. The series on Amazon just got canceled. Sorry, guys. I know most people in Shelf Space, it was the buddy read for October. I was just unable to get to it, but most people really enjoyed it. I know Jesse was kind of middling on it. I know Abby didn't like it, but from everything else I've heard, it is super exciting, and that I've heard the second and third book don't really kind of live up to this one. I have never heard anybody talk about anything beyond the third book, so maybe it's just so bad people stop reading it, or maybe it's just too long, and it's 9 books and they're big. But I definitely want to read more science fiction, and this is going to be one of the 2 science fiction series that I definitely want to pick up this coming year. I have also heard that its representation of gravity is among the best in all the books written, that it does a fantastic job of discussing gravity and the laws therein. Thank you, Sean, for that juicy tidbit of information. Next on the list is the Dagger and Coin series by Daniel Abraham. This is a 5-book series starting here with the Dagger's Path. So, Daniel Abraham wrote the Long Price Quartet, which I really enjoy. It's a very subtle look at war, and there's a lot of political intrigue, actual political intrigue, not just some kings. No, actual political intrigue. And the first book is all about economic manipulation and what, how trade really affects power. And I think he explores that here as well. I found a really good synopsis of the series just in general that just sounds, it sounds so good to me. It says, this series is a tale of people coming to power unprepared and what they do as they come of age and learn to wield their new power. It also it is also a look into what actually wins wars: military might, the dagger, or money, the coin. I like the coming of age stuff less interesting to me than what does win wars. An exploration of is it strength or is it money that wins wars? I love exploration of economies in fantasy. I don't know why I find that so freaking interesting. Just that you can bring down a nation by fiddling with its economy. Steven Erikson actually deals with this in a couple of the Malazan books that I really, and because of that, that's one of my favorite of the Malazan books. So I'm a Daniel Abraham fan, so that's another reason that I'm really excited to get started on the Dagger and Coin. All right, next we have the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown. Red Rising is the first book. I think it's 5 books, but I think it's like a trilogy and then like 2 books that aren't really part of that first trilogy. Anyway, from everything I have heard, Red Rising is a weak book that many people, that it feels very YA, feels very Hunger Games, and that many people almost put it down. But then book 2 and onward is just amazing. I know, again, Leanna loves this series. I know my buddy Alex Nieves, this is his favorite series of 2020. And that is high praise for Alex. So that definitely gets me excited to read these books, both of their praise that they heap upon it. I know Charmaine just read Red Rising like last week and really loved it. This is about, I think this is a revenge story. I think the main character, I think I know what, I do know what happens. I do know what happens and he's going to get revenge for it, but it's like a caste system. You're born in, like genetically different into a caste system. Like the reds are, what are they, short or something? And the golds are the highest. And I think the blue are the tech guys, whatever. It's in space, it's on Mars, but I heard it's just like fantasy in space. It's not really sci-fi. I don't know much else other than that, but high praise from people whose opinions I value. So and this first book, short, blessedly short. Are you kidding? Look at this, 350 pages. Oh, mwah, Red Rising, mwah. So excited to start that next year as well. All right, 3 more left. I really want to start this series, and I haven't heard anybody talk about this, but this is a sci-fi series by Ian M. Banks called the Culture series, the first book being Consider Phlebas. What I have heard about the Culture series is that there is this AI, this advanced AI that has essentially taken away all like need and it's just taken away all strife from mankind. Like no one has to worry about anything. This AI provides for everyone, and it's just this kind of really kind of utopian culture. Now consider Phlebas, the first one, from what I understand, is a guy from outside the culture. Yeah, everything, the culture is that the AI just provides the culture with everything they need. And what this series is about, I had to really kind of look up a description because it was very complicated. The main theme of these novels is the dilemmas that the idealistic, more advanced civilization faces in dealing with smaller, less advanced civilizations that do not share its ideals and whose behavior it sometimes finds repulsive. In some of the stories, action takes place mainly in non-culture environments, and the leading characters are often on the fringes of or non-members of the culture, or sometimes acting as agents of the culture in its plan to civilize the galaxy. So, this advanced civilization that is really utopian and is trying to civilize the rest of the galaxy. It just sounds super cool, and it's just a really lauded science fiction series. But the first one came out in like 1987. I think it went all the way through like the 2010s was the last book. So I'm really eager to start this series as well because it just sounds freaking cool, and I need to read more sci-fi. So next to last in the series that I want to read next year, we have this is the only one that I don't have an actual copy of the first book yet. It is the Rearia Chronicles. And that starts with Theft of Swords, which is a bind-up of the first 2 books. This just sounds like right up my alley. There's 2 partners in crime, Hadrian and Royce. I love anybody named Hadrian after Emperor Hadrian, and Royce is a cool freaking name. Thank you, Lunar Silver Star. And it just sounds like heisty and high adventure and swashbuckling and fun, and this kind of like bro buddy cop relationship between these 2, which reminds me, just when people talk about it, of Gus and Sean from Psych.
We just saved Christmas.
What?
Which is one of my favorite shows of all time and one of the best chemistry 2 actors have on screen ever. it just sounds so good. And Shelf Space is doing kind of an unofficial buddy read of it this month, and I just can't get to it. And so I'm going to start it hopefully early next year and get into that series. And because Michael J. Sullivan has a bunch of other series as well. There's the one that takes place like thousands of years in the past. And then the Rearia Revelation series, which is, I think, a prequel to these. I don't know. There's a bunch of Michael J. Sullivan, but I haven't read any of him. And I think that if I'm going to talk about Michael J. Sullivan, I should have read some Michael J. Sullivan books. And finally, last on the list of the books, the series that I want to start in 2021 is Ye of the Siren Song. Do you hear that? Do you hear that? Those are the sirens. This is Way of Kings, first book in the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. No one watching this doesn't know what Stormlight is. Everyone knows what Stormlight is, whether you've read it or not. This is Brandon Sanderson's, probably going to be his magnum opus. It is a 10-book series which contain 2 5-book arcs. Only the 4th book just came out in November, so this is a long time from completion. I just read my first Brandon Sanderson book this year, last month. It was The Final Empire, first book in the Mistborn series, and I really enjoyed it. So I am excited to get involved in the Stormlight discussion. Every single one of my friends talks about Stormlight, whether they like it or not. Andy, I know, hates it. I know Chris doesn't like Brandon Sanderson either, so those two I can listen to the non-love Sanderson opinions. But everyone else loves Sanderson and loves Stormlight Archive, even if my buddy Sam is not enjoying Rhythm of War at present. So, those are the 15 series that I am so excited to start in 2021. So guys, make sure to tell me in the comments which of these you've heard of, which of these you've read, which of these you are most excited to see me start, which of these you might want to, join me in a little buddy read of when I begin my sojourn. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Information about my Discord and my Patreon, if you want to support what I do here on the channel, are down in the description as always. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you next time.